What's up, guys? It's G here, and welcome back to the Grizzly Life Podcast. This is part 3 of our story, and today we're diving into 2020, a year of unexpected opportunities, growth, and pivotal moments that helped shape Grizzly Fitness and Priority Fitness into what they are today. New episodes will be dropping every Tuesday and Thursday, so be sure to subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications so you guys don't miss an episode. Now let's get into episode 3 of the Grizzly Life Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Grizzly Life Podcast. I'm Chase here again. We've got Garrett behind the producer chair today, and we've got Colton here. If you missed last episode, episode 2, be sure to go back and check that out just so you're caught up to where we are now. Covered a little bit more on the very early Priority Fitness side of things, so our first install story, and as well as some of the guys we're bringing on early on, how the gyms were progressing back then as well. And today, we'll obviously keep expanding on that and start getting a little bit more caught up. Find some odds and ends stories in there for you, and we'll keep her rolling from there so you guys can see how we got and grew to the company we are today. So, Colton, what do you got for us now?
I'd like to thank everybody again for joining us today on episode 3. If you have not listened to episode 1 and 2, I strongly recommend you do that because we're not going to touch base on too much of that information. So please go back and listen to episode 1 and 2 to get the full story from start to finish. If this is your first time joining us, a brief background of who we are. My name is Colton Burt. We've got 6 Grizzly Fitness locations. We've got some real estate along with those locations. We do own some of the properties that the gyms are in. We also own a fitness equipment repair and service company that does mobile diagnostics, servicing of full commercial Anytime Fitnesses, YMCAs, that kind of stuff. And then we do full gym moves, full gym installs, all of that kind of stuff, right? We sell some used product. So that is the industry that we're in. And now we've got this podcast called the Grizzly Life Podcast. We are currently on Spotify, YouTube, and we should be on Apple here shortly. And we will be filming these podcasts here in the near future as well. So that is kind of a brief background on us. I am 26 years old, and thank you for listening. The goal of today, episode number 3, is to, there's a couple things I left out from last episode that I'd like to touch base on first. So I'm going to tell you guys a couple more stories to kind of build that up a little bit more. And then we are going to get into 2020, get into COVID, kind of what that did for us and all that kind of stuff. So story number 1 that I did not touch base on, we talked a little bit about our Michigan install last episode and how that went very not well, very not ideal for our first one, being the age of 19 and not knowing what we're doing. But we also had another install for one of our main sales reps that we work for now. Brief explanation on Priority Fitness. We do not sell the brand new product. We install the brand new product for the companies who do, such as Matrix is our large account here in Wisconsin. So back in 2019, let's say, maybe it was late 2018, I can't remember. Again, I'll try to get some of these dates for everyone. We did an install, and this was a very easy install. This was like a squat rack, a deadlift platform, and a bench and like a bike or something. Very simple install. But we're doing this install, again, in quotations, for our mentor. And the sales rep always shows up to these installs. He's always there. He's very good. He's very good at what he does. And the full circle story is very funny because we did this install for him. We screwed it up. We didn't do anything wrong. We just didn't know how to do it efficiently. So an install that should have taken us, that install with 3 guys now today would probably take us an hour and a half, right? This install took us like 3 or 4 hours. Like, we didn't do bad. We just didn't know what we were doing. There's no instructions with the install on this stuff. It's all like QR codes and online stuff, which we didn't know at the time. And so it's me and Kyle and maybe one other guy. We're doing this install. We just took way too long. The sales rep was very not happy with us. So we did not do any Matrix installs or service work for several years. It's funny because now we're like their lead installer. We do all of their YMCA installs in the state of Wisconsin, and we do this stuff, and it's just funny because now they're like one of our best customers, and I consider myself good friends with the salesmen and some of the guys that work at Matrix Direct and all that stuff. So just kind of a full circle. That's how bad we were at age 19 and 20 to now. I would like to say we're one of the best in the country, right? I'd say we are the best, but I don't like to kind of go down that path. But we are very good at what we do. Another story that I'd like to touch on that I left out in the same time frame. There was a Gold's Gym in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And for those of you who have been to a Gold's Gym, they're generally very large facilities. I believe this facility was like 46,000 square feet, which is rather large. It had a pool area, it had a functional fitness area, it had a full free weights area, several thousands and thousands of pounds of plates and dumbbells and squat racks, and I think it had 30 treadmills and 20 ellipticals and 20 bikes, and then they had their cardio theater room where they turn the lights down and they've got a TV playing, they've got a movie playing in the cardio theater room, so you can go in there and do cardio while watching a movie and all that stuff. So to put it in perspective, this is a very large Gold's Gym. And mind you, I'm in the buying and selling equipment, and that's what I do. And I see this, I think at the time it must have been Marketplace now. So timeline-wise, I think this is like, again, probably like 2019 or late 2018 where Marketplace is starting to be a thing for fitness equipment. And I saw a Facebook post for some gym equipment, and it said basically like, contact us for more info. And it was just like all these pictures of a Gold's Gym. And I'm like, oh, this would be so cool. So I contact them and talking to this lady, and I go down and I do a tour of this Gold's Gym, taking pictures and inventory and just figuring out what's all there. And I'm like, well, this deal is way too big for me. And when I buy and sell gym equipment, or when I was buying and selling gym equipment, what I would do is I would run numbers and I'd figure out where if I paid X amount of dollars with trucking and all of this stuff and extraction costs and labor, I get it back to our warehouse. I've got enough margin to sell it. I've got enough margin to break even, or, it's not a good deal for us. So I would do that for all of the equipment I would buy. Even for our studio when we first started, I would buy a piece and I would make sure that my motto was, if we went bankrupt tomorrow, I could sell the equipment that I've already purchased for more than what I paid for it. So I would still be ahead and I wouldn't be like losing money. Like if we had to liquidate, I would be able to sell it for more than what we paid for it. That was my motto when we were starting up. So I tour this Gold's Gym. I take pictures and inventory and all that stuff. I bring that back, and I'm like, this deal is way too big for us. Like, this is way over our head, and we can't. We've got 4 or 5 dudes that work with us at the time for Priority Fitness. I can always ask more friends and family to help, but it's not easy, especially for a job of this size. I mean, this is several semi-loads of equipment, and at the time we were just doing like box trucks and trailers, and that's how we were moving a lot of this stuff. So anyways, I didn't really think much of the deal. I'm working out in the gym in Princeton now. It's like a month later, and I get a message from the lady. She said, hey, just so you know, all the bids are due today at noon. It's like 11:45. So I don't have much time to act. And I figured she was reaching out for a reason, but she's like, hey, if you want to put a bid in, you need to do it now, basically. It's due at noon. And I was like, honestly, lady, like I just, I could maybe do like 30 grand. Like that's, and I'm sorry, like that's all I can do. She said, thank you for your bid, right? I'm like, okay. I'm working out. Lights are off in Princeton. I'm feeling good. It's like me and my workout partner. All of a sudden, like an hour goes by and I'm finishing up my workout and I get a message. Hey, you've won the deal. And I was like, oh, fuck. Now I got to find $30,000 and figure out how to buy this deal. Like, this is not good, right? Like, how do I do this? So I was excited, but I was also freaking out at the time because I was like, great. We also, at the time, we had this other deal that was also happening that we had to like find $15,000 for. So it was all this stuff all happening at once. I want to say the month was like October. So now we're trying to get all this stuff together. We just won this massive deal. We don't even have space for this much equipment, mind you, 46,000 square feet of gym. And I think at the time we were renting 10,000 square foot warehouse in Berlin, Wisconsin, or maybe we only had like 5,000 square feet, but they had additional space for us to rent in Berlin. So now I've got to do all these logistics. I've got to figure out trucking. I've got to figure out like storage for this. I've got to figure out how to find $30,000 and all this stuff, right? So we get the storage, and I was talking to this lady, and I said, well, how soon does it need to be out? Because if it needs to be out like in one go, I said, I probably still can't do it, and I'm sorry for bidding $30,000. She goes, well, actually, we've got 30 days, but you need to pay half down like by Friday, right? Like you have to give us half down, otherwise we're moving on. So I figured out how to get her $15,000. That was like the first time I've ever wired money. So I figured that out. And I have like 30 days or 45 days to get the equipment out. And so we're taking all the stuff down. We're taking all the stuff out. And what we did is we would send like 2 or 3 box trucks or a truck and trailer and a couple guys. And so we would go down there like 2 or 3 days a week and just be pulling stuff out, bringing it back to us. And this gym had some pretty cool stuff, which is why I was interested. They had like a full hammer strength line and a bunch of dumbbells and stuff that we could use for our gyms right away. So it was like, oh, I think we can sell this gym for more, or I can sell all this equipment for more than we paid for it, and we can keep a bunch of stuff for our own. Worked out good. So I don't need to go too much crazier into that story, but we had 30 days to get the stuff out. Weekly, we were sending trucks and trailers down. We actually, we ended up making the deal work. We got the stuff back to our facility. We are renting about 10 or 15,000 square feet now at our Berlin warehouse, and we've got a full Gold's Gym worth of equipment in. So it was a great story. It was just very funny, and that was kind of like our first large deal. That was like the first thing we've done at that scale, and it worked out for the best. So I would like to touch base on one other story that I left out from last episode, or timeline wise. Our sixth gym location now is, well, it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was our 5th. O-Town.
It's like so pitch and catch, like it happened so close to Amro. It's hard to tell if the merger happened first or if Amro got bought out first, but I think O-Town might be a month before we officially opened Amro.
So we fast forward to now, we are partners with the gym in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, with Jacob Colburn, which he'll be on this show as well. It was O-Town Iron. It's still labeled as O-Town Iron. It on the back end, it's Grizzly O-Town or something. Grizzly O-Town LLC is our LLC, I think. So we will at some point potentially do a name change and a rebrand there. But for the purpose of all of this building up, when I first started my Princeton studio in early 2017, about, I want to say it was like 6 months after, my biggest deal at the time was I met this guy on Facebook. He hits me up, some, in quotations, kid, even though he's older than me. I'm like, oh, some kid wants to open a gym. Yeah, okay, like whatever, sure. Like I'll work with you. I can get you everything you need. That's, but in my mentality, even though I was a kid, I was like, oh, some other kid, we'll see where it goes, right? So at the time, my parents have a barn. I've got a bunch of equipment stored in the barn. I've got like 10 or 15 pieces in there. I told Jacob, I said, hey, come meet me at my warehouse in Berlin, and then I'll like bring you over to my parents' place, and we'll go in the barn, and I'll show you some other stuff I got. And I also had another buddy in Princeton that also had a barn for storage. So like I just had stuff all over the place because we didn't have any money. We just needed like free storage, basically. So anyways, I won't go too crazy into mine and Jacob's story, but 6 months after I started my Princeton studio, I believe Jacob opened up his own studio called O-Town Iron in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He got all of his stuff from me for the most part. So fast forward to this Gold's Gym story. Jacob and I had not talked for some time. We just had some situations come up, and we were just kind of living separate lives. And so I helped him start up his studio. We stopped talking for some time, and then we reconnected around this Gold's Gym time. I called him. I said, hey, I've got this crazy deal. I've got some stuff. If you want it, let's work out a deal. You don't even have to pay me up front. Like we'll work out our own deal, right? He said, okay, sounds great. So now Jacob's bringing box trucks to this Gold's Gym as well. He's buying stuff from me, and we're helping him get it out into his truck and stuff. And that's what really helped him actually open up his new location with more equipment and more space that he needed. So he needed a bunch more equipment than what he had, because he was actually going through a location move himself. He moved from by the movie theater in Oshkosh to the Pick and Save on Jackson Street. So it was a 4,000 square foot gym to a 9,000 square foot gym, 10,000 square foot gym. So it worked out good timing. And so that's the end of the Gold's Gym story. We don't have to go too crazy into that. That is the start of the O-Town story. And we will eventually get to more of O-Town and mine and Jacob's relationship as well. But that is some stuff that I left out from last episode. We did crappy installs in the beginning. People realized that we weren't very good. We were young and immature and just not knowing what we were doing. We had a very large deal come up at the Gold's Gym and some other deals in the beginning there. And so now I'd like to talk a little bit about 2020 and COVID and kind of what that looks like for us. We had a lot of stuff go on during COVID. A lot of businesses, people in general were struggling and things were going on. COVID for us was actually a good thing for business purposes. COVID happened. Some of our employees, some of my good friends actually, because I built our company on friends and family, some of my really close friends stepped away from the company, which I think was a good thing. I think we needed a reset. I think we got to a point, and when we get more to the business talks, we expanded too quickly. Our payroll got very large very quick because being young and dumb, you just think you need more guys to do more work, but really our payroll got large. So COVID happens. A couple individuals step away. They're still helping us on the side here and there, but they were like, hey, we're just going to focus on our own thing. We're going to go a different route. I'm like, that's fine. That's actually great. So COVID, for one, gave us an employee reset, kept the main guys on payroll. We never did any like the PPP loans. We didn't take any money out for that stuff during COVID. We kept our guys on payroll that deserved it, and we did all that stuff. We did what we had to do there. I know there was a lot of unemployment stuff going on too, so we kept on with that. So COVID was all right for that purpose. Secondly, gyms were closing, which also benefited us because we were the company that bought the equipment. So I think a handful of Anytime Fitnesses closed, which was too bad in the grand scheme of things. But for us, it allowed us to get a bunch of equipment at a great price. So now we're buying Anytimes that are closing. We get all of their equipment. We refurb it. We sell it. We keep what we need. Actually, our main circuit in our gym in Berlin right now is a circuit from an Anytime Fitness that closed during COVID. So anyways, so that's another good reason for us in business that there was gyms closing and allowed us to do that. Third thing, everybody was scared to go to the gym. So now everybody needed gym equipment. Who has gym equipment? We do, right? So everybody came and bought equipment from us for cash. Like we couldn't hold on. Like COVID happens, people freak out. They come and buy treadmills, ellipticals. People who would be like, I don't even use bikes, but that's all you've got. Just give me a bike. I need something to stay in shape. Like everything we would sell out of. We stopped reconditioning stuff. We started selling everything as is. We were selling treadmills that were like 20 years old for $800, $1,000, like just getting rid of it. And all of a sudden we didn't have enough inventory. And we're like, well, shoot, we should have maybe listed our stuff at a higher price and held on to it longer because it would have continued to sell. But so now the year of COVID, we made incredible amounts of money selling used equipment, and it was great. And some of those customers would pay us to deliver it and that stuff. So now we've got gyms closing, which we get their equipment. We've got employees doing their own thing, which is a good thing for our company. And we are now selling loads and loads of equipment. COVID also, 2020 also forced us to close our locations, right? And at the time we had Grizzly Fitness Princeton and Grizzly Fitness Green Lake. Green Lake was always a 24/7 facility. Princeton was not. And when COVID happened, we actually bought our 24/7 system. We installed it during like the 54 days or whatever it was that we had to be closed, or 57. We installed it during that time at our Princeton facility. We installed a new 24/7 system at our Green Lake facility, and so they were both the same. And now we open our gyms 54 days later or whatever, and we've got 24/7 up. And now our Princeton facility has like 200 members. Like it's finally doing good. It wasn't 200 when we opened after COVID, but we got a lot more people coming and going, and it was great. So COVID again helped us take the leap to actually do the 24/7. Until that point, I was too cheap to invest the $1,200 I needed to get 24/7 up and running. Yet I bought Gold's Gym for $30,000, but I couldn't spend $1,200 on a 24/7 system. So kind of funny, but so we went 24/7 during that time. Which is another great thing for us. And then during COVID, did I have anything else for you?
I don't know. For the most part, you've hit pretty well. I mean, is there anything like gym spacing wise? Like a lot of studios had to go like the 6-foot route. You had to do closures. Was there anything like that?
Yeah. So funny enough, all these gyms they're closed. The gyms that made it through, but they were closed due to COVID restrictions and that stuff. A lot of the YMCAs would actually pay us to come out and relocate their facility stuff. So we either would space equipment out 6 feet apart because they needed them to be that way, or a lot of the Ys have pickleball courts. And at the time, a lot of these YMCAs were actually paying us to come move their circuit into their pickleball court area so that way that their gym could be enough space and enough, this and that. And so we're getting paid to do all these equipment moves and spread outs, or hey, we're getting rid of these 5 pieces because we need more space to have the 6-foot rule. So now we're getting more equipment. We're getting paid to move it. We're getting paid to extract it or whatever. And then we would also get paid to come back when COVID was over to put the stuff back where it came from. So overall, the COVID experience was 2020 was a good year for Priority Fitness. It allowed Grizzly Fitness to take the next step in its path, which was the 24/7 model. We also, another story, so 2020, we're renting our warehouse in Berlin, Wisconsin, on basically Main Street. And we've been renting there for, say, a year and a half or something. It was actually the first building I wanted, one of the first buildings that I was like, this would make the perfect gym, right? My mom and I actually toured it before I did the studio in Princeton, or maybe like right when I started it. I was like, oh, we need to think about bigger. Like, we can't just have this little studio. So we went to Berlin and we got a tour of this warehouse. And I'm like, this would be the perfect gym. It's right off Main Street, right on the outside of the town. It's massive. It's got loading docks and overhead doors. It would be so cool. Well, nothing came of it. We didn't, whatever. Well, like 6 months or a year goes by from that point of when we toured it. And I said, hey, man, like, I know we just toured this for a gym. And maybe it's like a year and a half later. I can't remember. But I said, hey, we need to rent this space for Priority Fitness. Like, it's this company. We do installs and service. And those of you in bigger cities are going to laugh at this again. The first building we started renting was 5,000 square feet. And our monthly rent was $500 a month, all utilities covered. And it was month to month, no 5-year lease agreement or anything. $500 a month for 5,000 square feet is extremely cheap and right in my budget as a 19 or 20-year-old, however old I was at the time. So now we've got a warehouse. And so we've got this space.
In Berlin specifically, you're talking about now?
Yes. So we're in Berlin. We've got this space. It's 2020, and we've got like 10 to 15,000 square feet now that we're renting at that time. And I was actually subleasing some space to a guy because my lease allowed it. And the guy had just like store a truck and trailer or like some equipment or whatever. He eventually moves out and he comes back like 2 months after he moved out. And he goes, hey, just so you know, I don't know if the owners told you, but I bought this property. And I'm like, you what? He's like, yeah, I bought this property, so I'm going to need you to move out in like 60 days. And this is my Berlin warehouse. And Priority Fitness at this time is doing pretty well, where COVID happened or is happening or it's about to happen. I think this is like very late 2019 or early 2020. He's like, you basically have to be out of this building. You have to be out in like 30 days. And then this other building that you're in on the same property, you need to be out. And like, I can work with you, but we need to get you out of here. And I'm like, oh, like, great. Like, how am I going to find another 15,000 square foot warehouse? Like, we don't really have a ton of open funds. We don't really have a banking relationship where we can buy a property, and warehouses aren't just that easy to find. So funny enough, Nolan Hins, another one of my best friends growing up, he goes online and he goes, hey man, I found this building in Berlin. It's actually out in this like industrial park area. And I had no idea that was like a thing. I never made it out to that part of town. And he goes, yeah, let's go look at it. Right. And so I said, yeah, it's a great price and a great building. Let's go look at it. We go look at this building. We cut a deal with the owner for a land contract, which we can get more into land contracts and how those work in a later talk as well. But we did a 1-year land contract deal with the owner of the building. We put a large lump sum of cash down right away with a balloon payment in 12 months. And so now we've got a Berlin warehouse, and now we can relocate all of our stuff from the Berlin warehouse that was purchased out from under us into this new facility. And so now it's like February of 2020. So obviously I talked a lot about how COVID benefited us, but early 2020, I think it's February or March, we bought this new building. We started moving into it. We were getting out of our old facility. And long story short, the reason we bought this building was to be half warehouse and half gym. We wanted to make a really cool gym in Berlin for the community to use. And that's what we started doing. So we started doing some renovations, which this is the first building we bought. We had no idea what we were getting into, and we will go into a very great story about the Berlin property and how it came to fruition and all the cost it took. But long story short, very expensive project. Did not know what we were getting into. It was an old wood shop for 40 years prior to us. So picture like sawdust everywhere, like several, I mean, on some of the structures inside the building, we're talking like 6 inches of like just sawdust, like caked on there. And The ceiling is all like that insulation where it's like covered, but you can like put your hands up in the cracks. And so we had to spend 3 days of just vacuuming and cleaning out this building before we could even start moving in. It was crazy, but there's a lot of detail to go into there. We can talk about that later. So now we've got a 14,000 square foot building, the first real estate piece that we bought in 2020. Warehouse is moving in. Gym is going to be there. Our goal is to open a gym as fast as possible to cover our rent or cover our mortgage, right? And then the warehouse can kind of live there rent free. That was our structure. So that is 2020 of the Berlin gym. Do you know opening date for Berlin wasn't till February of 2021 maybe?
Berlin
Or March of 2021?
So I first actually got a membership at Berlin. I'd had a membership at Princeton during that time just because it was closer for me, or it was more convenient for me, because I don't think Berlin went 24/7 right away. Berlin had an open house like in early March that I got my fob, I got set with a membership. So March of 2021
right?
would be when it opened up.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, so, that kind of puts it into perspective. We were in this Berlin facility for a while, getting everything set up, organized, warehouse, equipment moved around. And mind you, at the time, like, we still had some storage at our Princeton facility because we had a gym there and a little warehouse there, and we had kind of equipment all over the place still. So that is kind of the main points of 2020 during COVID. We could have another hour-long episode on just the gym itself for the Berlin facility because it was quite intense. I think something else that happened late 2019 or 20. I had the timelines all over the place. I should have written this down so you guys could understand in chronological order how this happened. But in the meantime, our Green Lake facility also closes down at one point due to a sale of the building. They actually kicked us out of our Green Lake facility. So I think at the end of 2020, before we opened Berlin, or maybe early 2021, Green Lake Fitness opened back up after the 54-day window. The gym's doing great. We've got it going amazingly. At the end of 2020, I believe they sold the building that we were in. Well, they did sell the building that we were in. They did one of those dollar sale agreements where somebody came in and they bought it and they're going to do great things for the city and community. So it was like a dollar sale of the deed basically, and the guy took ownership of it. So this is like September, I think, of 2020. The guy buys it. We basically get kicked out of our gym. We're back down to one facility, but we're opening Berlin to be our second facility again. So it's kind of a weird thing. Again, more stories we can go into, but our Green Lake facility ends up closing. Our Berlin facility ends up opening in early of 2021. And we do this open house and the gym's doing great. And in the meantime, like, Priority is just functioning. Priority is doing what it's supposed to do. Priority Fitness, we're installing equipment. COVID was great for it. And basically from 2021 to now, to 2025, there's not a whole lot to talk about Priority Fitness. There's a lot of stories and lessons learned that will definitely go into depth. There was another warehouse relocation or two that happened as well for Priority Fitness. But other than that, I mean, it's basically been new employees leaving, different situations like that. But now we've got Grizzly Fitness open in Berlin of early 2021. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave this episode off. COVID was kind of I think that was a good chunk of conversation today on episode 3. We covered a decent amount of ground. Episode 4 will be probably wrapping up the history. You guys have got a lot of the foundation now and understanding of kind of how we got our foot in the door and how we started with some of these in the industry of fitness itself. There are a lot more stories and detail to go into, which will be the future of the podcast as well. I'm trying to not go too deep into that kind of stuff, although it's hard not to. But anyways, I appreciate everybody joining us for episode 3 today. If you want to follow me personally or give me some comments and questions or anything like that, we'd love to hear them from you. Our email is marketing@fitnessgrizzly.com. That'll be the best way to contact us and let us know what you think of the episode or things you'd like us to expand on or maybe something you'd like clarified. We'd love to have those questions so we can bring them up next episode. My personal social media, Snapchat is Colton, Colton, _Burt, BURT. Instagram is ColtonBurt19. And Facebook, I think you can just search me, but if you need my username, I believe it's Colton.Burt19. So feel free, add me on all of those, contact me. Please share this episode with friends and family, anybody who you think might get value out of it, people who you think should hear the story. The more the merrier. Please leave us a rating on Spotify and YouTube and soon to be Apple as well. So again, thank you all for listening and stay tuned for episode 4. Chase, do you have anything you'd like to add?
As far as socials, like Colton mentioned there, I should be Chase Mastrocola across everything, that being Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and the like. So that's ChaseMastricola. And be sure to, again, support the pod. Hop on Spotify, give us a rating there. Leave your comments, concerns on YouTube, and we will see you in episode 4 and many more.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.